Right. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Catherine. Yeah, I'll just introduce to the stage my colleague, Devex Senior Editor, Catherine Cheney.
Thank you, Kate. And I'm thrilled to be joined by Cina Lawson. Many of you may recognize her. We can go ahead and take a seat if that works for you. So Minister Lawson is joining us from Togo. She's in high demand this week because Togo really is such a model for how technology can improve lives. So really appreciate you taking the time to join us here. She is the Minister of Digital Economy and Transformation in Togo. And for those who aren't familiar, during COVID-19, Togo really demonstrated what we called in a Devex story, precision aid, and what that can look like. And this is through the use of a platform called Novisi. Novisi combined mobile phone metadata, geospatial analytics, and machine learning to prioritize assistance and deliver assistance to the poorest in the country. So today we'll talk about how the government is leveraging digital tools to provide citizens with access to public services and hopefully lessons for other countries as well. So I want to start with why you are so personally committed to this cause, because in all of my reporting on technology and global development, one thing that emerges is government champions matter. So tell us a little bit more about your personal commitment to the cause and how have you worked with some of the regulatory barriers that often stand in the way of technology adoption to make progress in Togo?
So good afternoon, everyone. I've spent, I think, all my career in telecom, not as an engineer, but because I believed that that was the tool that could enable real change on the continent. So that was my main reason for, working in digital, and I really liked also technology. So the commitment I had when I started as a minister was, we need to have more of the private sector in Togo. How do you do that? You need to create an enabling environment. So early on, we did a lot of work to change regulations in Togo to increase private sector participation. And the stand that we also took was, every time we do a project, let's make sure that we can have the private sector to participate. So we had lots of JVs. For example, we created with a private Polish company, a cybersecurity company, that is the operational arm of our National Cybersecurity Agency. This was innovative because most of the time on the continent and everywhere, when you talk about cybersecurity from a state standpoint, it's really agencies, national agencies, and we said, no, cybersecurity is a service. Let's work with people who can actually deliver services, and most of the time, it's the private sector. So we built this model, which is entirely new to the continent and maybe to the world. So during the pandemic, because that was your question, right? During the pandemic, what we wanted to do was to support the informal sector. And talking about technology being such a tremendous tool, the idea was we need to support the informal sector because we're implementing mobility restriction measures. So how can we give them cash to support them? And we said we need to build a platform to distribute digital cash so that they would receive it directly with no intermediaries, right? So initially, Novisi, which means solidarity, was just about building a payment platform. And because approximately 30% of the Togolese still have 2G only phones, and the poorest Togolese were the ones that were our target, we needed to build a platform that did not require people to have access to the internet in order to register onto the platform. So it was a USSD-based technology, a short code. So
just to jump in on that, it's so interesting because you mentioned, most of the population has 2G phones, and yet I mentioned earlier, you're combining mobile phone metadata, geospatial technology. So that's not a barrier to combining different technology tools.
No, it's not. It's not because to go back to we used satellite imagery to prioritize beneficiaries, because when we started the program, it was really basic. People would register with their biometric IDs, and the platform would recognize, would determine eligibility based on people's professions and locations, right? And then if you knew someone's neighborhood, and we decided to support only people living in certain areas where we implemented these measures. Otherwise, it wasn't necessarily to just distribute cash. It's a lot of cash. But it was in the world in April 2020, and we did not know how long the pandemic was going to last. So you can't go around distributing cash, not knowing if you're going to be, fighting this pandemic for an additional year. So we had to become very efficient in prioritizing beneficiaries. So we reached out to Esther Duflo, who is the Nobel Economy Prize winner. And we said we need to find new methodologies to prioritize beneficiaries. And she put us in contact with a group of researchers who were able to do two things. Number one, to draw a poverty map of Togo using artificial intelligence, but ranking the 400 districts that we have from the poorest to the richest, and giving for each district the average revenue and the range of revenues within the district. And this is just through satellite imagery. So that was number one. We were able to determine where the poorest Togolese lived. Then the second question, when you know where people live, is who are they? Because you need to actually send them cash, right? And we used another AI algorithm. This time we applied it to mobile operators, CDRs. And the machine, I call it the machine, but the algorithm gave us the phone numbers of people who earn less than $1.25 per day. So now we had their phone number. We texted them saying, register onto our platform with your ID and you will receive cash. So all in all, this program was able to pay out 25% of all Togolese adults, 920,000 people, and 15% of these adults were paid solely determined by two AI algorithms.
Just a question on that. So these research partners you mentioned, this is the Center for Effective Global Action.
Yeah.
I know you've partnered with them. You've partnered with Give Directly as well.
Exactly.
And I wonder, there's a lot of value in government academic partnerships, but they also take time. And it's kind of amazing to hear that this worked seemingly so well in the midst of a crisis. So if you can point to any lessons, how did your government work with academic partners, with partners like Give Directly on this precision aid model, and what advice would you give to other governments who are looking to do the same?
So I would say, like everything in life, we were committed to this partnership. So we would have Zoom calls every week for a year. So we were one team working on Zoom, and even the web of researchers, there were maybe 10, 15 people on the call. Every week at the same time, we decided that it was going to be Thursday afternoon. We had the Zoom call and we would work on everything. So even I was sitting on the call. I was sitting on the call because, you just needed to make it happen. So I think it's just to be committed to something, and also to be able to or willing to try out new things. We were also lucky because Give Directly, because this program, we spent $34 million, but $10 million out of this 34 came from Give Directly, who actually reached out to philanthropists in the US saying, there's this program that is determining, prioritizing beneficiaries using AI. Would you be willing to give us money to distribute based on this methodology? Because our government system is not yet ready to pay out people based on AI at the time. Now maybe we've changed, and we have, because we received $100 million from the World Bank to expand this methodology. But in 2020, it would have been hard for us to get the Ministry of Finance to give us money. But Give Directly was able to find this cash for us, and that was great because this was real life experience.
So part of why I'm so excited to have you here today is Togo is an example of how technology can be used to improve lives. And yet, my big question to end on here is, what needs to happen to see more examples like Togo? There are a lot of barriers that stand in the way of this kind of digital transformation in low-income settings. And I wonder, What's one thing you want to see happen? What's kind of your big message as you make the rounds in New York this week for more examples to emerge like Togo?
I feel like I have 1,000 messages, but I would say that it's never about technology. It's always about what technology can do. So sure I like innovation and so on, but I'm more interested with what I can do with it. And so digital transformation has to serve a purpose, and the purpose has to be to better maybe include our citizens. You know that half of our population in Africa is less than 18 years old. In countries such as Niger, they're even less than 15 years old. So it means, and 75% are less than 35. And they want nothing more than technology and to be able to live like in Europe or the US and elsewhere. So I think that when we understand that and the I would say the hunger for technology, we also understand the power of this tool. So I would say that one key project for me is connectivity. And it's very important because when we think about connectivity on the continent, we think about mobile connectivity. And we do believe in Togo that fiber is the end game. So we need to be able to deploy fiber to have very high speed internet on the continent, in addition to obviously other technologies.
Minister Lawson, I know you have a busy schedule. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you.
Thank you.